Welcome to AUSOME. I'm David Vogelpol. Work for Marketing Click. That's my Twitter handle. You can see me around speaking at places like Profile Affiliate Summit. If you haven't been here before, I've been through this quite a few times. But again, I'm David Vogelpol, and I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Also want to thank our food and beer sponsor, Affiliate Summit. This is Sean Collins, one of the co-founders of Affiliate Summit, and you can see there he's showcasing the Violent Snuggie or whatever it was. But he said he was going to be late tonight. He might have snuck in already, but since he was going to be late, I figured I'd show whatever picture I wanted of old Sean there. Reminders, hashtag #BeAwesome for Twitter. Use the Meetup app to check in and upload photos. And I'm not going to do this every week because I don't want to inundate their Twitter account, but I do want to inundate it tonight. If you guys could tweet at Capital Factory with the hashtag #BeAwesome and thank them for hosting this event. It's really nice of them to do that. Saves us as the organizers a lot of pain of dealing with venues and drink minimums and all the other kind of stuff when you go outside of a space like this. So if you guys are on Twitter, please tweet them and thank them for allowing us to have this in this space. So the topic tonight is SEO. How many people are responsible, the primary person responsible for managing their website? Great. How many of you are seasoned SEO professionals? Okay, great. So 2 out of all those people that raise their hand, 2.5. It's extremely important for your business, and it's a very complex topic. The rules, the playbook is not anything you can read. People experiment from the outside, and they come to conclusions. They will do studies that have finite facts, but at the end of the day, it's kind of a murky world. And so what you need to do is you need to keep up to date on it, and that's why we bring speakers like Jeremy here tonight to share with you the things he sees in his business. I've known Jeremy off and on for 6, 7+ years. I first met him when he was running a company called apartmentratings.com that provided ratings on apartments. He eventually sold that, has done quite a few things since then, and is now the CEO or founder of Ridden, and he works with Techstars. If you guys don't know that, it's a kind of a startup incubator thing. He's also a mentor here at Capital Factory. So he deals with a lot of companies early on and later on in their life cycle. He's been around in the industry for a long time, does a lot of stuff. And so we're really happy to have him here tonight. Please give a big round of applause for Mr. Jeremy Benkin.
Hi, thank you for coming tonight. So I was having a conversation before this started, and it was kind of around the idea that, there's just so many tactical things that change all the time in SEO. What's the latest, like what's the newest thing? And I was thinking like that's a good question, and a lot of people have this sort of just kind of angst that like SEO changes constantly, and like why, what's good today changes tomorrow. So I thought I'd just start by saying like there are essentially 3 basic things that you need to think about. It comes down to you want to project yourself as an authority, be an authority. Don't just like make signals that fake out somebody to think that you're an authority. Actually be an authority on your topic. Like that's really important. That's sort of the basis of everything. The next is you need to be unique. You can't just be a me too, oh, I'm gonna be the next kayak, It's like, well, kayak does that really well. Like Google doesn't need another kayak. And then the final point is, or the final sort of core element is be helpful. So you need to think about SEO as just those points: authority, uniqueness, and helpfulness. If you are thinking in terms of doing those things for your users, then everything's going to work out really well for you. It may not work out on a short investment time frame. So if your idea is that I can jack up the traffic by doing X, Y, and Z little tactical things in a short period of time, that might work, it might not, who knows, but it's not going to sustain. So, but if you're focused on the core things. So I thought I'd just start there, because I think if you have that mindset coming into this, it's going to make everything else sort of fall into place, and you're going to be a lot happier about the results that you get from your site. So I've worked, so I founded Apartment Ratings, sold that to internet brands. After that, I founded BuzzStream, which is basically it's a CRS, like Salesforce, for doing link building and blogger outreach. And now I'm working on written.com. And sort of in between BuzzStream and doing written, I worked with Awesome Ventures to help that team acquire Retail Me Not, which is now the Retail Me Not that we all know. And then I spent some time with Matt Fitness and sort of all these, companies in Austin that are in some way or another just very heavily dependent on organic search as the primary driver of their business. And so what you find when you get to those sort of scale companies, the things that they're thinking about are all about user experience, all about authority building, and all about providing unique value on the internet that you just can't get anywhere else. So that's sort of what informs my background. And so working with all these sites, what I found was that there's basically 4 types of sites. So if I come in to start working with a client and I look at kind of where they are today, if they've not really developed any content, there's classic startup, starting from zero, and they haven't done any optimization, like they have a business card homepage. It's actually not a bad situation because it's just going to mean lots of work, right? But the next stage for them is they have to build content. That's how you get from type 2 to type 3 or stage 3. Is investing in content, making yourself an authority. And then once you've built a really sustainable base of that, moving to type 4 actually it's just not, suddenly things really start to flow. So you start to get lots of traffic, and then it's just about ensuring that you're influencing your content or providing content in a way that people are searching for it, and that it's optimized to attract the right audience. And then if you're a big site, you have a lot of content, and it's really optimized well, then at that point you're doing a lot of incremental changes just to try and win 10% more traffic. Or it's not a game of trying to trick Google at all. Like, in fact, you're scared to death of ever doing anything that Google will perceive badly. So just kind of think about like where your site is, and kind of you're going to have to move from type 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 in that order. So if you're a founder and you're thinking about, you're trying, if you have a board or if you've got investors, what happens a lot of times is that you'll start doing SEO and you'll have an initial spike in results. And then you're like, great, let's invest more. So you invest more, but then kind of results come down for a little while. And then, it's really nothing you're doing wrong or doing right in a sense. Maybe you're doing all the right things, but just to any outside observer, it's like you're spending so much on SEO, but the results are there's a huge gap between what you're spending and what you're getting. So it looks like you're doing the wrong thing. And you're not, it just takes time, because this stuff doesn't happen overnight. You could be an authority, you could be unique, you could be really helpful, but it just takes time for Google to recognize all that and collect all those signals and validate them and know that there's a reality there behind just what they might be seeing. Actually, I think we're gonna wait to do questions. I'm gonna try and go fast, so I know I'm going a little slow right now, but I wanna go faster. So we're gonna try and do 30 minutes and then questions. So, all right, so this is sort of the thing that you see on the internet. It's like, can you provide examples of startups that are successful with this? So it's actually not that hard to find some good examples. You look at these new startups. These are actually Y Combinator startups, so I chose them because they're, at least in this venue, which is Hacker News, this is sort of the good reference point for those guys. The interesting thing is, if you're targeting the right audience and you're producing a site that's really sort of narrowcasted to that market, you can actually get very good results in a not unreasonable amount of time. Now this actually, I created this a couple of years ago, so it looks not as impressive now, but this is sort of a year to 2 years out for these companies that are already succeeding. I mean, if you look at online facts, Hello Facts, if they had to buy that traffic, it would be like $30 a click. But on here, they're ranking number 2. So they're basically, if you think about how much traffic that means for them, twice as much traffic flows to the organic side of the search results as flows to the paid side. So if you start with that, then the number 2 site gets roughly 15% of the traffic. So they're taking a massive chunk of the overall search for online facts, which would cost them a fortune to get thousands of dollars a day to buy that on AdWords, and they're actually able to generate that from their organic listing. So it's super valuable, and I would say just don't give up hope if you're not seeing initial results. I'm going to skip this one because this is sort of a case study for, these are the slides that I've done for Techstars companies, and these are companies that have VC investors and are going to be kind of held to a very very tight results on SEO. So I'm probably not as relevant for this audience. So just in Austin, a unicorn, just by the way, so a unicorn is a $1 billion plus company. So if you IPO your company for $1 billion, or you sell it to somebody for $1 billion, you can do that on a site that's very heavily driven by SEO. So the examples we have here: Indeed in town, Retail Me Not in town, HomeAway, SolarWinds, huge companies that were built on having amazing amounts of traffic. So one just key point to start with is that Google is, like, people talk about, well, there's Bing and Yahoo, and it's like, yeah, there's Bing and Yahoo, but the number 1 search on Bing and Yahoo is Google. So people are just trying to get to Google. So I personally just don't really focus on Bing and Yahoo that much at all. Another really important idea is that the number 1 search results gets like 3 to 4 times as much traffic as number 2. So if you're trying to compete in a search result, you don't start to see things really like change a lot until your rankings start getting into the 4s and the 3s and the 2s. Then you're going to see just massive amounts of traffic. Well, it depends on the keyword, obviously, but relative to where you started. So another core idea that you need to keep in mind is that I talked about authority, helpfulness, and uniqueness. All of that sort of feeds into Google looking for signals that you're a brand. So what does it take to be a brand online? It takes people actually sort of unprompted going and searching for you out of the blue because they heard about you some other way. So that if you go to Google and you search Capital Factory, that's a signal that Capital Factory is a thing, and now Google is starting to see a lot of people do that. So that means that, okay, that's a brand, we should figure out who to attach to that. Oh, okay, capitalfactory.com, that's the brand. And so that's another signal that plays into this idea that you need to be a brand. Another sort of key thing that's really changed in the last few years is Google starting to use human raters to validate the search results. So they're having people look at the search result and judge them. Okay, that site is useful but not essential, and make these judgment calls. And then they're not using that directly though. That's not as though that immediately influences the search results. But what it means is that they have like a benchmark for their algorithm. So if the algorithm is producing a lot of results that searchers have said are not that valuable, that's a problem signal to Google. So that's going to result in maybe other tests that they run to see if that search result is useful and good for searchers. So another idea is that there is personalization in the search results, but this is like, I feel like this has led to a certain nihilism around SEO that, you know, nothing matters, like, you know, everything's personalized, I'm going to give up. And the reality is that, yes, there are some differences, probably for Tom Cruise a lot, but it's not as bad as you think. Like, the search results for, you know, you and I search the same, you know, keywords, we're not going to see drastically different results. You'll definitely see differences if you go from city to city, but just because you've, like, you know, spent a lot of time on Deadspin, and I don't, that doesn't mean that you're going to see drastically different news results or other types of results. So don't overdo it with personalization. Okay, so this is probably the other, like, I would say, big change that we've seen in search is that, you know, when people were doing SEO in 2003 or 4, you know, they would pick a keyword that was like apartments, and they would like try to go compete on apartments, and they would go after, this is what we call head terms. Those terms get a lot of traffic, a disproportionate share, but now what we found is that if you go after the long tail, the searchers are more qualified, they're more, typically, they're more engaged. You know, they're already more sort of into the search process, so they're more likely to convert for you, and they're looking for really specific information, which you can provide, and there's probably not a lot of competition. So the long tail is now, I think, where the basis of a lot of competition is gone, and we're not, it's like, if you do well in the long tail, over time, you'll do well in the head terms. And I think that's something that's really shifted. So you're a new company, you know, you're a founder. Where are you today? Like, trying to start a new site. So you don't have a lot of domain authority, which is sort of code word for links. You don't necessarily have a lot of content built, but you probably have the technical savvy to get things done, or at least you can get WordPress and give yourself all the tools so that content creation is not a chore. You've got this sort of startup story. You can go out and say, hey, we're the best, we're the only, we're the, you know, the newest. You can really kind of play that differentiation to your advantage and get a lot of press. You know, press wants to write about new things. They don't want to write about the same stuff everybody already knows. So that's an advantage for you. And you can do a ton of PR, a ton of long tail blogger outreach, all the things that help drive authority, i.e. links. You also are probably a lot more in touch with the pain points in the market. Maybe you don't really have a dog in the fight. So you're not, you know, like a lot of big brand companies are like, well, we can't say anything bad about this, or we can't, it's like they're constrained in a certain way by having, like, they can't be totally honest with their users, their customers, or the people that they're writing for. And so that's unfortunate, right? Because for them, but it's great for you because you can kind of take this, you know, new angle on the market, and you know, you look at a good example of this is Priceonomics. These guys, they do pricing kind of like Black Locust here locally, but they have this blog that is they're writing all these interesting stories about like bike theft in San Francisco, or you know, why or how somebody founded a niche business doing jellyfish sales and things like that. It's just this weird kind of angle on content that you have available to you that, you know, traditional competitors don't have. And again, you're more in touch with the pain in the market. So hopefully you can translate that into some really compelling content. And then creativity and execution. You don't have legal teams that have to review stuff. Like, it's like the typical, you know, Fortune 500 company to produce like one article for the blog is like giving birth. So not good. Okay, so what I'd like to do is to spend a second on this, explaining that there's basically two paths that I see in a lot of sites for SEO. So there's the path where it's like HomeAway. You want to bring people to your site, you want to convert, you want to book listings, and your site, like HomeAway doesn't operate the vacation rentals. They're basically lead generation and booking generation for all of these independent vacation rental owners. So HomeAway is going to be more of an informational site, and they share that with Sparefoot, Uship, Famigo, Quipboard. And what they're really interested in is they need a lot of visitors, and they need a lot of those visitors to sort of take action. And in their case, they're not ad supported, but they need people to book. And so for those types of sites, that sort of dictates a lot of the SEO strategy. Probably don't do a lot of PPC initially. They probably focus on more of the organic search. They're large sites. They have thousands, tens, millions of pages. I think we had over 50 million pages on MapMyFitness. We probably had 50,000 to 100,000 pages on Retail Neon. These are just massive sites. They go broad and they go deep, but they're always around like specific kind of tangible things that people are looking for. These are templated sites. They're mass generated. So that's one type of site. Just curious, who is providing what they would, or who is working on a site that you would consider more of just a mass sort of informational type site like that? Okay, so just a small, like 5 people. All right, so I'm gonna focus more on the other side of the equation because, so that matches companies that actually offer something that their website is a marketing channel. It's not a end in and of itself. So for these kind of companies like Spanning, they do backup, but they have a site where they need to talk to customers about what they do. Or Trendkite, which probably nobody knows those guys, but they do PR monitoring. WP Engine, probably a lot of people know them. So again, they do hosting, but their website is not, that's not the thing in and of itself. So they're concerned about generating leads for their Salesforce, subscriptions, trials, installs, downloads, signups if they can get them. And then with those types of businesses, in my opinion, you probably want to start with PPC first, and for 2 reasons. Number one, and again, in my opinion, if you have something that you're offering that can't justify PPC spend, that should be a red flag to you. Like if your price point isn't there, your model doesn't quite support competitively bidding against other people that offer the same thing, that should be kind of a red flag that, wait a second, like we have a more fundamental problem in our business that we can't afford to pay $6 a click because we don't do X or Y. This competitor does that, we don't, we're kind of screwed. So the second reason is that you want to start with paid search is that will inform your SEO strategy. So then you'll have a map of essentially what core keywords, topics, pain points, issues that customers have when they hit your site that actually result in conversions. So does everyone know what I mean by conversion? I should just double check that. Okay. So yeah, so those are sort of the basics. Like if you get that far, you've done paid search, now you're ready to start making an investment in SEO. These are smaller sites. You're going to, so the basic strategy in my opinion is all of your content focuses on user problems. So if your customer pain points or problems you should be able to enumerate 20 or 30 of these just right off the top of your head. These are the pain points that my customers are going to have. They're going to be searching for solutions for. That's the content you create. That's right off the bat. You're going to write more handcrafted kind of expert articles. You don't want to send that to the Philippines to have somebody just write some garbage that is roughly related to the topic and then slap it on your site and say, oh, Google's too dumb to figure that out. what happens is it doesn't, not necessarily Google figures it out, but the users will figure it out. And when the users figure it out, they set off all these signals to Google that says, not worth ranking. So it's really important to write authentic expert content as around your user problems, like if this is the kind of site you have. You're going to probably focus on a lot of PR activities, things that will drive just sort of general knowledge about your site. So somebody, there's different link building strategies, but easiest thing is, frankly, PR and just having a drumbeat of and not, when I say that, not press releases, actual relationships with, Chris Calnan at the Business Journal, or whoever is the latest startup reporter at the Statesman, or even the the important blogs in your space. So it's really important to have personal relationships, because that will result in real coverage that counts. Press releases just pretty much don't count. And then your main problem is you've got a niche. So your search volumes are going to be low, and it's going to seem like, gosh, we're working really hard to not drive that many people. But you got to remember, the people you're driving are the right people if you're producing the right content. So if you're just really speaking to them, then what you're reaching in your niche is the right audience, and that will translate into your having authority so that you rank on kind of, again, the head terms. And then your focus is authority, your user experience, i.e. helpfulness, and sort of aligning your content to what people are actually searching for, and the way that they think about their problems. All right, a lot of lists, I'm sorry. I'm an MBA, so. There's sort of 4 pillars. One is that you're aligning your content with the way people search. So this used to be called keyword strategy, and now just think of it as search intent. We're trying to match what we offer to the intent that people have when they sit down at Google and search. They see you in the search results, and then they click through. If you're not satisfying that search intent and aligning, it's not just good enough to have a high ranking for a keyword. If you put yourself in the shoes of the user, if I search or you search that keyword, is this really what you had in mind, to click on? So Google kind of breaks this down into, there's transactional searches, informational searches, and navigational. So transactional, if I search Sony MDR headphones, I'm going to buy. So if you go run that search, you'll see on Google, it's like Amazon, Newegg, Buy.com, or Rakuten, or whatever it is. This long list of merchants. Maybe a blog post, maybe a CNET article, but that just tells you Google's decided that is a transactional search. So if you don't actually offer a way to buy those headphones, and you are really trying to rank for that, you are just headed for the world of sorrow, because you're just misaligned with what Google, what the search intent is for those searches. Informational searches are a little bit easier. If you search Austin running trails, people expect to see a really nice Google map with sort of outlines of running routes right on the map. That's sort of, and you can kind of just do this in your head. You can say well, if I search this, what would I expect? What would be the most awesome thing for me to find? Is it, am I really just looking for some boilerplate text with a picture of Austin that says running trails in Austin, search now? That's not as good as a map, right? It's common sense in a way. So the final group here is navigational, which you kind of don't even need to worry about, because this is basically people searching for brand names who expect to if I search United, I'm expecting to go to the airline. So a few of the tools, and we'll make the deck available, a few of the tools that I find that are helpful for kind of understanding this are Google Webmaster tools, not twos, SEMrush, SpyFu, and WordStream. These are all kind of very well respected keyword tools that can give you insight on how people search, not only for you, but for competitors. They can give you related keywords. They help you drill down into keywords, which is super helpful. But by far, the one that I think is the most valuable is Ubersuggest. So Ubersuggest is a tool that just scrapes Google Suggest. Has anyone heard of this? Should I just one? Few. So Ubersuggest is a great tool because if you think that, okay, our topic is, Austin, startup incubators. It would be nice to know all the ways people end that search when they go to Google. Do they end it with Austin Startup Incubators free? Do they end it with Austin Startup Incubators VC? What are the things that they end that search with? That will give you a roadmap to kind of the full context for the things that people are thinking about when they think about your head term or whatever topic you're interested in. You just have to go deep, and Ubersuggest will help you do it.
This is the one?
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
Another issue, and this is once you have more content, you just need to think about crawlability. So, and it's not about tricking Google or learning a lot of fancy tricks. It's basically, if you're in Google's shoes, it's a big pain in the ass if Google comes to your site and there are 15 different ways to get to the same exact page. The page is all the same, but there's for whatever reason, there's 15 other URLs that get you there. That's kind of a nightmare for them. It burns up their server resources, their network. They don't like it, and it kind of shows a lack of just tidiness for your site. So that's one thing. That's URL proliferation. Google also really cares that, I shouldn't say they really care, but it makes their life easier if you don't have multiple pages on your site that all are kind of similar. And so the best example of this is when I first started working with Map My Fitness, especially Map My Run, there we found if you search Austin running trails, there were no less than 27 pages that had a title tag that said that, had the main header on the page said Austin running trails, where you could get to them all these different ways. It was just a nightmare because they had been kind of just lax about the way they built out their site, and they just allowed this kind of proliferation, which from a developer standpoint is kind of oh, that's fine, Google can figure it out. Crawl resources are cheap, but it actually does create a big problem for Google. And it's not that they're mad at you, but it's you're probably going to do the wrong thing, and you don't really want that thing. So it's really good to just make it clear throughout your site. Make the relevance really clear to the search intent. You need to use, or it's good to use SEO-friendly URLs. Google's not checking you for that and penalizing you, but it is beneficial to users when they're searching. They see your URL in the search results, and so those users will then, it clicks in their mind, okay, hey, that's the right page for me. And then they click through on you more. And because your click-through rate on the search result is a little bit higher than the other guy that Google tested at the same spot, Google says, okay, you earned that ranking, and hey, we're going to try you a little bit higher and see if you do better than the guy above you. And so they keep moving you up until you sort of reach the Peter principle, and you can't go any higher because you're not good enough. And that's why SEO-friendly URLs matter. And so a lot of times, you talk to SEO professionals and they'll say, oh, you should really fix URLs, it's beneficial. And your dev team might push back, or they'll be like, oh gosh, that's just a really painful change. Do we really have to make it? And it's, and all this stuff at some level only matters if your competitors are doing it better than you, right? So if your competitors are implementing better URLs, then you probably need to worry about it. Your linking, kind of the way you link your pages internally is important, but I would say more important than that is that from your homepage. It would be hard to find any page on your site that's more than 3 clicks away from the homepage. If you're observing that rule, then you're probably in really good shape. You get into problems when you've got like whole sections of your site that you can't reach without like 5 clicks. And it has to do with the amount of link juice that Google perceives to be flowing. But just from a human level, it's like, well, those pages probably aren't as important as something that's really well linked within your site. So those are the things you've got to think about with crawlability. And some tools for that, Site Condor is some guys locally who I have a lot of respect for. They'll help you crawl your site and identify some of these problems. There's a tool called Screaming Frog, and Moz will do this. Others, I'm sure. And okay, so on authority, this is where link building comes in and you start needing to do PR and blogger outreach. So co-citation link prospecting, what that means is that you're looking at, okay, who linked to 2 of my competitors but not me? Okay, I should probably reach out to them and say, hey, can you link to me? Like that's just a very easy starting point. Content marketing and content promotion sort of go hand in hand. So you sort of, one strategy that people have for this is they'll go look at a competitor's site in SEO markets. Say I want to see the page on their site that's been shared the most. Not the homepage, but let's find a blog post that's gotten the most traction. And then I'm going to create my own version of that totally separately that is a million times better, and I'm going to pay a designer to make some nice graphics for it, and an illustrator is going to do some illustration, and I'm going to put that out there, and then I'm going to go promote it. And anywhere my competitor had somebody link to them, I'm going to go back to those people and say, hey, I saw you were interested in this. Here's my, I just published this. Check it out. So not even asking for a link, just promoting your content. That kind of content creation or content marketing combined with promotion is really powerful, and it's not aggressive. It's not like link begging. You're actually creating content that is valuable to the market, and now you're promoting it. And you have a reason to kind of get it out there, and people have a reason to want to promote it too, because it's nicer, it looks better, it's more useful, all those things. Public relations and blogger outreach are roughly the same thing, but in those cases, what you're doing there is kind of going out more with your story. Hey, you should be interested in our business because we're the only, we're the first, we're the best, or whatever the superlative is that you can attach to it. Those are the things that you need to really highlight so that bloggers and the press have a reason that they really can't ignore you. They would be remiss to their readers if they didn't write about the only service that does X or the only product that does Y. Getting social signals is important. I don't think right now Google is ingesting anything from Facebook or Twitter other than what they can just crawl from the open web. So wouldn't obsess about it, but it goes to authority, and it's important to build authority. Therefore, it's important to have a good number of likes, a good number of tweets. As a friend of mine says, it's that's real company shit. So it's you need to look like a real company, and that's stuff real companies do is they get, they have Facebook followings, they have Twitter followings that are active on those channels. And the most important thing when you're doing, if somebody comes to you and says, hey, let's do link building, in the back of your mind, you need to just have in mind whenever there's any link that you're thinking about is it relevant? People reading on this page, are the people that are reading on this page likely to click my link to come to my page because it's just so relevant to what they were just on? That's core. That's a really important thing. Naturalness means that you don't control the anchor text, so you're not telling a blogger or telling a site, okay, I want these keywords, or Google has really crushed that with Penguin. They've really come down on sites that are doing a lot of link building that have that just is unnatural, kind of fundamentally. But the core rule is, do you control the link? And I've even heard some extremists go to the point of saying, if you know that you're going to get the link, then it's not natural. I don't go that far, but I think you should do a lot of work to not try to influence the links. And then the authority of the site that's linking to you. Obviously, if you get a link from the Statesman, that counts more than, I like the Austin Phoenix, but it's a brand new publication, and the Austin Phoenix is, just doesn't quite have the authority that the Statesman does. Okay, so for these tools, there are a few things around content marketing and choosing the right topics to write about. CopyPress, Inbound Writer, those are really good tools. SERPIQ can help you figure out what keywords have low competition and high search volume, so that's a kind of a sweet spot to target. Longtail Pro I've not used, but a lot of people seem to like it for the same purpose. Writer Access and Scripted are reasonably priced, reasonable quality content shops. So they have a network of writers who will write for you. But I would really, if you're ever paying less than 10 cents a word, that's a warning that should be going off. Is you're just not going to get anything good for less than 10 cents a word, at least in my experience. BuzzStream, when you're ready to do outreach and pitches to bloggers and press, BuzzStream is a tool for that. There's also Tout. There's also Ninja Outreach. There's also there are a few actually that have popped up since we launched it in 2007. And then Follower Wonk is actually this really interesting thing that SEO Moz bought that allows you to search for people on Twitter who in their bio have stated that they're interested in whatever whatever you're about. So you can find people that are really into green smoothies, and they say so in their bio, and then you can make a Twitter list, and then you see, okay, what website are they associated with? Are they a blogger? And then you can turn them into a PR prospect. Okay, we are a little over from where I wanted to be at this point, so I'm going to go even a little faster. UX, unfortunately, this is one of the most important things. So user experience on your site comes down to, it actually doesn't start on your site, it starts on Google. So what users see, if you think about how this works, you type in a search result, or so you type in a search, you get a result. So all that users have to go on in terms of judging you and deciding whether or not to click is your title tag, and your meta description, and your URL. So those three things are the only influences really on whether you're going to get the click or not. So how well you match up against the search is critical, but also how, think of it as you're a shop owner and that's your merchandise on the shelf, and you're trying to merchandise it to make it the most attractive it can be. So if you have, funky capitalization or weird stuff going on in your titles, that just immediately is going to kind of diminish you in the eyes of the searcher. So that's what you have to work with initially. Now, once somebody actually clicks on you, now you have to worry about their bounce back rate or their pogo sticking. So essentially, if they click through on you and then hit your page and then immediately bounce back to the search result, that is a catastrophe for you, because what it means is that Google just got a signal from someone that said they hit your site and their immediate link reaction was, "Oh, I'm in the wrong place," and now they came back. So at least for that keyword, you just lost some relevance, or you just you fell a little bit in Google's eyes. But again, all these things are relative to your competitors, so it's not a catastrophe. If your bounce back rate is in line with the next person down or the next person above, you'll probably stay at the same place. But if you really want to move up, that's an area to focus for ranking purposes, is to bring down sort of the bounce rate on your pages and keep people more engaged. Get them to click through to something else or watch a video or spend more time. And this is, so you know, in the sort of promo that we put out for this tonight, I think, you know, one of the questions was, does my logo affect my search results or affect my rankings or SEO? So this is why. Like, you have a ugly logo that's pixelated or, you know, maybe a little stretched some weird way. It's a blink reaction that the user has that just hurts your credibility with the user. So now they're likely to just bounce right out of there. You know, some people may be really dedicated or really desperate for what you have, and they'll stick with you. But for kind of the mainstream consumer, when they hit your site, if there's, it's basically that like Malcolm Gladwell blink sort of reaction. It just sets in their head this whole like emotional state about you as a site. And so everything goes downhill if you have a bad blink reaction. So yes, invest in logo, invest in really good design. It's totally worth it because online, that's your brand. And then the final part of that is that you're expressing, once a user comes through from the search, from the keyword, that they're in the right place because your content matches what they searched. And so there's a lot of opportunities there for optimization that's usually pretty cheap. All right, so I'm not going to go through all these. Again, these will be handed out, so I'll just point out a couple. Individually handwriting your title tags, totally worth it. You should write, again, think about it as a merchandiser and like write your title tags individually. Don't just like take the post title and let that become the page title. The actual title tag is a distinct thing. Excuse me. Sorry, that was even worse. You're going to have to install like Yoast or SEO for WordPress or another tool that allows you to like actually write the title tag separate from the post title. And that's worth doing. And I'll show you a couple things that I've done around testing. So without ever investing in a domain name or without ever investing in a logo, or at least committing to a logo, how I tried to identify if those things, or how those impacted search. Okay, this is a site, this is the first thing was about putting the registered trademark symbol in a title tag. We added this on a site on Famigo, and we did a lot of other things too, but it was just kind of shocking the impact that had on their traffic. I mean, they went from a few hundred to thousands and thousands of visitors from doing this. And again, it ties back to this idea, having a restricted symbol, which just means that name is restricted, doesn't mean that you own the name, tells people, okay, that's an official-ish site. And so the blink reaction of the searcher is, oh, okay, maybe that's the one I wanted. They search for Insta Spanish kids, boom, I'm in the right place. This is another site where essentially the orange line was the year before and the blue line was the following year, and they were kind of freaking out because, you can't see the arrow, but over here, I did worse than destroy.
I look like you destroyed pretty well.
Yeah. Okay, well, it doesn't reflect. So over on the left, what was starting to happen was that their current year traffic was like flat with prior year. And these guys had venture investors who were like, heads are gonna roll if this isn't fixed. And just going in and like cleaning up the site got them back on track to be like 30% year over year, 40% year over year traffic growth. So those things can impact a successful site. Okay, so one thing that we were trying to figure out, okay, we've got two names for a domain. One is called App Dev Hero, and another one was called Developer Guys. And we weren't sure. I mean, maybe it seems obvious now what we should have done, but we weren't sure at the time like which one was better. And, like we had 3 founders, we're all kind of debating like what one we should register. And so we did this test where we took a search result, and in Photoshop we changed it so that the only thing that was different between the 2 search results was the domain name of the #1 site. And then we asked people, which would you click? We ran a test on Mechanical Turk, and this is actually what the test said. Which page would you click? Imagine you're a business owner and you want to create an app for your business. You just search how to create an app. Which one do you pick? And so what we found is that on the right side, developer guys had a lot more people who said they would click or they would choose the #1 search result than the left side, which was App Dev Hero. So at least for me, that was just it was such a stunning result, because it basically meant that for no other reason than the domain name, people just had kind of a more positive reaction to the site on the right, to developer guys. Like, for whatever reason, developer guys sounded like a more legit site. And again, thinking back to click-through rate, if you have a name that's like customer repellent, maybe it's worth changing, or if you have the opportunity to choose a better name, you should take it. We did the same thing with a logo. We ran an A/B test with PickFu, and this was, I would do this test a little differently now, but essentially what we did is we took the same page, photoshopped in a different logo, said which one do you think is more, would you trust more? So again, going not for, you're gonna click it or not, or actually what we're really trying to predict is the bounce rate. So our thesis was trust translates into bounce, or lack of trust will translate into bounce. So this is how we picked the logo, which was, the winner was kind of this little globe over here on the right, or on the left. So again, logos matter. And thinking about who you need involved in your company, sorry about the boxes, they got tweaked when we moved to a different widescreen format, but you kind of only need 2 core, like if you're really serious about SEO and like making an investment for the long term, you should kind of be thinking like, I need like a core SEO kind of analyst, guru, technical SEO, product manager kind of SEO. And then you need this other kind of SEO who's like a content promoter, someone who can come up with content strategy and do promotion of the content. And so roles 1, 2, and 3 could be like one person, and roles 4 and 5 can be the next person. And then you're just going to need design resource. So sort of the minimalist team, for a site that is lives or dies by SEO is probably 3 people. And then over time, if you're successful, like Sparefoot, like each one of these is now an individual job description at Sparefoot. There's somebody that does just that, and probably 2 or 3 people for each of these things. So that's kind of what it looks like when it scales up. And then a few things that you can do for homework. Again, we'll send these out. But most importantly, set up Google Webmaster tools and start getting an idea. That's how Google communicates with you. So get in there and start analyzing or taking a look at like what Google is telling you about your site. It'll tell you about errors, it'll tell you about link warnings, all that stuff. And that is it. So we've got a little bit of time for questions. So let's jump in.
So will the Google Webmaster tool give you like your bounce back rate? Is there a way to find out like which pages you're bouncing back off of, or what they're searching that's giving it like up that wasn't it?
Yeah. Google Webmaster tools will tell you the click-through rate in the search results, which kind of need to pair that a little bit with, that chart I showed at the beginning with the hockey stick kind of curve of like clicks. If you pair it with that, what you want to look at is for a given ranking, does your click-through rate seem high or low? So it's not just like in a vacuum, you gotta look at it in comparison to what it should maybe be. And then for what you're asking about bounce back, within Google Analytics, if you go to, I think it's under behavior, No, it's under content, landing pages, and then you'll have a report under landing pages of bounce back for each page individually. Yeah.
Do you have like a methodology or kind of recommendation for A/B testing? Because people can do, shouldn't probably do A/B testing on everything, but just kind of in your experience, what's the best kind of method for that?
So the kind of A/B testing that's available to us for SEO purposes is you can't turn it live on your site really to like figure it out, or the only way to do it is to like test for a while and then test something else for a while, and then try to compare the results, or test a subset of your site one way and a subset the other way. Actually, interestingly, that was when Google Ventures invested in RetailMeNot, that was one of the main things that they were interested in, is like, how do you test when you roll out changes? And so I had to like walk them through, okay, this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a subset of certain pages, test there, and here's how we monitor, all the things that are going on. So you can do it, but it takes a lot of management of it. But it occurred to me, maybe your question was more about like, I want to try your landing, or I want to try A/B testing. Is there a safe way to do it for SEO? Is that kind of more what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay. So A/B testing with SEO, I think Visual Website Optimizer is good. Adobe's Test and Target Optimizely is good. I mean, basically, all these tools will just, with JavaScript, kind of change things on your site so that it's really only something that the end user sees. Google can render JavaScript, but based on what they've said at conferences is that they sort of know that A/B testing is going on, and they know the common platforms for that, so they're not going to pay attention to A/B tests that are running. They're just going to look at the core page that most users get. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Does that do you concur?
Yeah, I do most of mine with paid traffic though.
Oh, okay.
And I don't do A/B testing on the SEO side.
Oh, so you avoid it altogether?
Do you want to repeat that? 'Cause
Yeah, so David said that if he's going to A/B test, he does it, so imagine a page that's getting some SEO traffic, like move it to a part of your, or not move it, but create a shadow page that's identical that you only drive paid search traffic to, and you have your A/B test running there, and that way there's just no risk that Google will even see VWO or Optimizely on there.
All right, awesome.
Cool.
You can split your redirects across different access pages and then canonical URL to the original page. Kind of removes duplicate content issues.
Yeah, so you could have your server like 50% of the time send traffic, like 301 traffic one way. Although I would say you should use a 302 if you're going to take that approach, because Google is very sort of absolutist about 301s. Like, it's better be a permanent move, otherwise, we're going to be mad at you. So yeah, you could do that. I would just, I don't know, weird things show up in the search results whenever I've done 302s. Like there was one time with apartment ratings where we had this whole idea that if like a review got deleted, because each review had its own URL, we would 301, or we screwed it up, but we would redirect the user back up to the apartment page. And if an apartment got deleted, then we'd redirect the user up to the city page. And so we have this whole kind of redirect flow happening kind of without anyone keeping an eye on it. And we screwed up and we actually did 302s, and then what we saw in the search result was, instead of if you search Austin apartments, instead of apartment ratings, like the Austin page showing up, suddenly some random apartment started appearing. And so you just gotta be really careful with that, because Google will take you at your word, which is good and bad. So, what's that?
How did you solve it?
Oh, so that was just an issue of switching it to a 301 instead of a 302. Yeah.
How much is there decisions are just based on algorithms which are running automated on a computer, and how much of it is somebody actually sitting there making a subjective judgment?
So the best way to think about it is that the people serve the computers at Google and help the computers judge. Like the computers are trying to replicate what normal people would do, and so they look at a small set of data that real people, so the training set of data that real people came up with, and then they try to get the algorithm to produce that same result on, that it will match what people do. Does that make sense?
No, but how can Google take a massive amount of people to actually watch millions or billions of websites out there?
So if there are billions of sites, they look at, let's say, 10,000, and they figure out based on that what how well the algorithm is producing results, and then they feed that back into the algorithm to tell it, good job or bad job. So it's really more about using. It's definitely, unless you've set off a spam flag for them, then that's a whole other team that's going to come in and review your site. But for kind of the majority of stuff like Panda and algorithms like that, those are machine learning algorithms that essentially try to detect all the things that would suggest that you're a low quality content site. And then they ask people to say, would you trust this site? They ask all these sort of survey questions.
Is it like 99% computer and 1% a person actually looks at it?
Yeah, I think of it that way. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you see video being used effectively?
So I'll admit I've not done a lot of sort of marketing with video or content development around video. So say that up front. But what I've seen people do that's worked well is they use video on a SEO landing page, so that people will watch the video, so they stay longer on the page, and so that will influence Google's algorithm that says, oh, for whatever reason, people seem to be staying a long time on this page. So you can, and that's actually just a good thing to think about in general. Is like, Google doesn't care if you have text on the page, if you have a map, if you have a pretty picture, if you have yourself singing a song. Like, if that's the right content for the page that people actually want, and it's there on the page, easy to get, then that's the signal that's going to come back to Google. So if a video is the most appropriate thing, that's a signal that Google will pick up because they spend so much time on the page. And even if it's not the most ideal, it does tend to get people engaged on the page a little longer than an article or a little longer than other things. So, yeah.
For apartment ratings, obviously part of that site was being able to develop user-generated content and content related reviews or expertise in apartment rentals. From that experience, do you have any personal recommendations of how to recruit and or engage third-party services for developing reviews and or marketing content, and what that costs typically for quality content?
Oh, so I'm an advisor to a site or to a company out in the Bay Area that's doing some stuff around expert reviews of apartments, and what they're doing is hiring temp workers to actually physically go to the apartment, and they find that they can visit the apartment and write like a really decent review of the apartment in under an hour. So if you figure average temp rates, that might be $20 to get a review, sort of those kind of economics. So don't use Turk for reviews. Don't do things that aren't real reviews. But definitely don't leave any stones unturned. If you can be, part of being an entrepreneur is being resourceful, right, and being creative. Or as my professor at UT liked to say, having sort of a rat-like cunning. like, if you can find some tricky way to get content that's good quality, and you're not, just don't sacrifice quality. But if you're doing it and it's innovative, keep doing it.
So reviews aside, let's just say it's like articles or content related to what your subject is. You said 10 cents per word was a low bar.
Yeah.
What is an average bar for high quality written?
Well, I can tell you, if you hire someone, a freelance writer who has, been in the industry for a while, like, more times than not, they're just going to say $1 a word. And so then you kind of have to negotiate. There's there's creative ways to structure things so that you're not getting, crushed on the price for, that's the other thing. These days, it feels like, and tell me if you disagree, but it feels like if you're going to write like an in-depth article or in-depth blog post, it's got to be 1,000 words. It has to be like pretty long, and even better if you have like custom illustrations or custom charts or custom design stuff that you can put in it. So, I mean, Google's just raised the bar, for content quality quite a bit. But like I said, writer access and scripted can help you find people that aren't quite the $1 a word folks. I've like trolled LinkedIn. Well, actually what I do is I search Google, site called linkedin.com, and then I'll search freelance, or I'll search writer, plus like whatever the industry is. So if I was looking for somebody who could write about PBXs, like I found this guy who was a freelance writer and he had sold PBXs like a few years before. So I emailed him and he was like, oh, I'd love to write. That was really, that was a great match. So stuff like that. Yeah.
Can you give us your elevator pitch on written.com?
Sure. So Written is a content licensing platform, and we help brands license content from bloggers. And the unique thing that we do is we actually will move the traffic associated with the content over to the brand along with it. So that means that when a blogger accepts a license, they install a plugin, the brand installs a plugin, and everything happens sort of in an automated fashion so that they approve it, content moves, and then there's a redirect over that's temporary, but it moves all the traffic. So within a couple of weeks, Google will start showing the brand in the search results as the location for all the places where that article previously ranked. So.
And how's that cost compared to a freelance writer generating content?
Well, so it's a rental model for content. So the cost can get pretty expensive. The typical brands that we're working with are spending, $600,000 a month or $500,000 a month on AdWords, and so they've sort of capped out what they can do on AdWords, and then they bring us in. Just they'll do like a $10,000 campaign, and we'll be able to, if they're paying $1.50 on AdWords, we'll probably come in at 25, 30 cents a visitor, but it's all based off of the amount of traffic. We just say, for your budget, here's what we can commit to in terms of traffic. So, yeah.
Our website, we encourage, one of our best ways to get SEO optimized is we encourage people to buy our product to make a YouTube video review and make that to us. Then we give them a full review. And we found it really useful SEO relevant to it. But how relevant are those ranks if they're all coming from, say, Vimeo or YouTube? Because we asked specifically, just pop link to us, you get a full refund. And then we have this army of people that are viewing our videos, but is Google looking at it as one backlink from YouTube or hundreds of backlinks from YouTube?
Yeah, I think that Google, so unfortunately Google probably would feel like that was a little unnatural. And if you got big enough and they caught wind of that, they may penalize you. It's a little bit similar to like what Rap Genius got slapped for. or even JCPenney's. So JCPenney's was doing this link, well, supposedly their agency was doing a campaign where they were going out and going to universities and saying, hey, we'll give you these coupons for your faculty and staff if you create a page that, you know, links to JCPenney and all these categories. And then, and so it was kind of like, get a discount, or we'll give you a discount if you give us a link kind of thing. And so that was the crux of that penalty. So Google doesn't like the idea of any sort of economic incentive driving a link. Like to them, that's they just view that as a link scheme, would be their terminology. So, and you know, it's a diminishing return. If you've done it and they're out there and it's worked, there's a point at which it's just the next one isn't going to be as valuable as the last one, and you know that continues to go down. So I would probably end that campaign at a certain point and then shift your efforts to just more general PR. I mean, for the same dollars that you're giving people back, keep the money and then invest in PR and things like that. So I would be a little, again, all these things, like that is an example of that would have to be a manual action, because someone at Google would have to like figure out sort of the chain of like economic incentive.
Yeah, there's nowhere on our website that says that we give you a refund. It's a flyer that comes in the package.
Yeah.
It says, here's your package, make a video, link back to us.
Yeah. But you never know. I mean, people might post that on a forum, or it's just the kind of thing that if it got out there and you were big, like Rap Genius, then Google might slap you guys for doing it. So it's probably better if you can say, you know, you're in better shape if you can say, oh, you know, yeah, we did that, but we can't, you know, we killed that campaign because, you know, we got guidance around Rap Genius or something like, you know, you can say that you proactively took action to stop doing that. I mean, would you?
One more question.
Would you agree?
I think so.
Okay, so one more question. And blue,
No, I can answer it.
Okay.
Because we have done this, I can answer it. So, never do anything for Google. You have to, don't appear to be a spammer if you are not one. You know, sometimes people overdo it and then Google says, oh, this guy is a spammer. Although he has done everything there.
Yeah, so if I could repeat that, what I think the gist is like, don't do things or act in a way that might overlap with how a spammer operates, and you'll be in better shape. Since that wasn't a question, can I take one more?
Good.
All right, right here in the book.
Question on, for a retail physical product, do you find that Amazon pay-per-click versus Google pay-per-click has any better yield?
I have never tested that. A retail product, I would think probably Amazon. I mean, my blink reaction is probably Amazon would be better just because there's less competition within that network and the traffic is more highly qualified because people were on Amazon to buy something. But I don't know, you know.
I have tasted that. So the ads, Google ads on Amazon perform better than sometimes the Amazon ads itself. So if you want to be a part of Amazon, be a seller on Amazon. Don't try to advertise your product.
Okay. Cool. All right, so that's like yet another angle is if you want to be on Amazon, buy Google ads that appear on Amazon.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the turnout and the questions.
Thanks, everybody, and you can come across Jeremy and ask him all the other questions you didn't get to ask him in the group. So thanks for coming out. Plenty of food and beer left, so thanks, everybody. Have a good night.